In 1973, the most stylish personal luxury car in America packed 400 cubic inches under the hood, rode a wheelbase longer than most living room sofas, and cost less than a Corvette. But here's the crazy part. Pontiac almost didn't build it at all. You're about to find out why the 1973 Pontiac Grand Prix SJ was one of the most underrated, over-engineered, drop-dead gorgeous cars Detroit ever produced. A machine that blended luxury, raw power, and bold American design at the exact moment the entire industry was about to fall apart. Stick around. The ending? Most people completely miss it. To understand what made the '73 Grand Prix SJ special, you've got to go back to 1969, the year Pontiac reinvented the Grand Prix from the ground up. They pulled it off the full-size platform, shrank it down, stretched that impossibly long hood, and created something that looked like it had been designed by architects who moonlighted as drag racers. By 1973, the car had hit its stride. Pontiac moved over 153,000 units that model year. That wasn't luck. This was a car that understood its customer, someone who wanted to feel like $1,000,000 pulling into the country club and still feel the seat push back hard when the light turned green. But here's where it gets interesting. The Grand Prix wasn't just fighting Ford and Chrysler, it was battling the Buick Riviera and Oldsmobile Tornado inside General Motors itself. Pontiac's answer? Give people something those cars couldn't. A car that looked expensive and still drove like it meant business. The Grand Prix came in a few flavors in '73. The Base J, the SSJ, and then the one we're here for, the SJ, top of the food chain. The SJ wasn't just a badge. You got heavy-duty suspension, a sports steering wheel, premium interior upgrades, and the engine options that made everything else irrelevant. Standard was Pontiac's 400 cubic inch V8 at 230 horsepower. Before you compare that to peak muscle car numbers, 1973 was the first year of net horsepower ratings. That 400 was still pulling hard, still a proper American V8 that delivered every single time you got on the highway. But if you wanted more, Pontiac offered the optional 455 cubic inch V8 at 250 horsepower. In a 4,000-pound personal luxury car, that engine transformed the Grand Prix SJ from a cruiser into a legitimate performer. Most people miss this part. A 455-equipped SJ could run with cars that cost significantly more and wore actual performance badges. That 116-inch wheelbase meant the hood stretched so far ahead that first-time owners said it felt like parking a yacht. And that was exactly the point. The hidden headlamps behind a massive split grille, the clean, long body lines, the fastback roofline Pontiac called the super stretch profile. Formal and athletic at the same time. Inside the SJ, Pontiac delivered high bucket seats in Morocide vinyl, a full-length console, actual instrument badges, and an optional formula wheel that made the cabin feel like a cockpit without losing an ounce of occasion. And that's when things get really interesting. Pontiac priced the SJ at roughly $4,400 to $4,800 depending on options. A base Corvette started at $5,600. You had a car that was arguably more comfortable, arguably just as fast in the real world, and nearly $1,000 cheaper than America's supposed sports car icon. A lot of buyers did the math. Here's what makes 1973 so fascinating. This car rolled off the Pontiac assembly line in Michigan just months before everything changed. The OPEC oil embargo hit in October. Gas lines wrapped around the block. Every big displacement American V8 suddenly became a political target. Insurance companies had already been hammering performance cars with brutal premiums. Federal emissions regulations were strangling output, and then the gas crisis arrived on top of all of it. The 1973 Pontiac Grand Prix SJ sits right at that hinge point in American automotive history, built just before the full weight of those forces landed. It got the last of the real Pontiac V8 magic in a package that still looked confident and drove the way Americans expected their cars to drive. Think about who was buying this. You were in your late 30s or early 40s. You'd made partner, gotten that promotion, worked hard for it. You weren't buying a Firebird anymore, but you weren't ready to hand over the keys to a Cadillac and admit the fun was over. The Grand Prix SJ said, "I've arrived, and I still drive it hard." You can't tell any Pontiac story from this era without talking about what the brand meant. The GTO, the 421 Super Duty, the NASCAR wins that put Pontiac on the front page every spring through the 60s. By 1973, the direct racing program was winding down, but the reputation hadn't faded one bit. When people saw that split grille coming, they paid attention. The Grand Prix SJ didn't need a race trophy. The history did the talking. That proportioning, long hood, short deck, wide stance, still turns heads today. Pontiac created shapes in this period that have aged better than almost anything else from the early 70s. So if this car was this good, why did it fade away? It didn't vanish overnight. It got watered down, year by year. By 1974, federal 5-mile-per-hour bumper mandates killed the hidden headlamps. By the mid-70s, emissions equipment was strangling the 455. Then came 1978 downsizing. GM shrank almost everything, and the Grand Prix moved to the smaller A-body platform. More economical, more competitive, but the sheer physical drama of that 1969 to 77 body, gone. And then the brand itself began losing its identity through the 80s and 90s. In 2008, GM ended the Grand Prix nameplate forever. 3 years later, they killed Pontiac entirely. The brand that gave us the GTO, the Firebird, the Trans Am, the Grand Prix SJ, gone. If that doesn't land somewhere deep, check your pulse. Here's where the story gets good for anyone who owns one or is hunting for one. For decades, the 1973 Grand Prix SJ was a sleeper. GTOs, Chevelles, Cudas, those grabbed the auction headlines. The Grand Prix SJ sat quietly in garages, undervalued and overlooked. That's changing right now. Clean examples with the 455, documented history and original interiors are trading in the $25,000 to $45,000 range. 5 years ago, you could find a solid driver for $12,000 to $15,000. That market has moved. The buyers who were 20 when these were new are now in their 70s with the means to buy back their memories. And younger collectors, the ones who care about design and driving feel over drag strip numbers, are discovering what personal luxury cars from this era actually deliver. Most people miss this part. SJ-trimmed cars with factory documentation are significantly more desirable than base Grand Prix models from the same year. The trim level matters. The engine matters. The original build sheet, if it survives, matters enormously. Here's what almost nobody talks about. The car that looked purely like a luxury statement, that long hood, plush interior, boulevard proportions, was built on a chassis with serious engineering bones. Pontiac designed that platform with handling genuinely in mind. The wide stance, the rear axle geometry, the front suspension, this car was sorted. Road and Trap came away impressed with how it handled for its size and weight class. This was not a soft car pretending to be tough. Pontiac understood something in 1973 that took the rest of Detroit another decade to accept. American buyers didn't want to choose between comfort and capability. They wanted both, in the same car, right now. The Grand Prix SJ got there first, and the world barely noticed until now. If this hit home, if you remember one of these rolling down Main Street, or you're just now discovering what Pontiac was really doing back then, drop a comment below. What was your first car? Or better yet, what's the one car from this era you wish you'd never let go? If you want more deep dives into the forgotten legends, the unsung heroes, and the cars that shaped America's automotive soul, hit subscribe. We've got a lot more stories where this one came from. The 1973 Grand Prix SJ. Underrated when new, undervalued for decades, not anymore.